Hello. All right. Sorry about the wait. It was a combination of things, and this much was my fault. That much was other people's fault. Hello. Oh, look, there's messages on screen. Okay, so this is my sophisticated setup. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to look over here, which is the many questions that you've asked me. Jesus, so many. And they're really hard. They're difficult questions. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer as many as I can in however long we've got, about an hour. And the ones that I find too difficult, I will skip, or I may try to answer them. And the nasty ones I will ignore. And I think what we'll find is, looking through them all, there are a lot of questions which are fundamentally the same. So lots of people have asked about Chrome Dome and Rewind, and lots of people have asked about the DJD and about what would have happened had the series continued. So by answering those questions, I can hopefully satisfy a lot of people. It's really weird talking to myself. I know you're all there. Hello. Hello from down under, says Joz. Hello. It's like a very long monologue. It's like a single page of MTMTE. It's got that many word balloons on it. Right. Okay. I'm going to have to try and not read them. It's nice to see your messages. It's nice to know that I'm not by myself. But this is like doing a Q&A on stage with no audience feedback whatsoever. Not stuff I can hear anyway. Right, okay, let's have a look. So, thank you for everybody that asked questions. Because I'm very sensitive, most of the questions to me seem to be sort of a veiled criticism, like, would you have done more with this thing if the series hadn't finished? Or, maybe you wouldn't have treated that character so badly if you had more issues? Or would you have developed that idea more had you had more time? So, fair enough, fair questions. Right. Well, to pick a random example, a random question, first of all, it says here, so Frindle Babin says, Swerve really loves human culture. Would he ever date a human being? Just hypothetically speaking. I presume the question's hypothetical, and not Swerve dating somebody being hypothetical. He would probably date Ryan Reynolds. So that's one question down. Number 2, what obscure Transformers character do I regret not adding into the series? And this person, Scavenger, likes what I did to Star Saber. So there's one person. What obscure TF character do I regret? I think I managed to get most obscure characters in. And what happened was, me and John and others, in the end, pretty much picked the G1 carcass dry. Picked it clean of characters. I don't think there's many left. Even the Micromasters, Simon just got in there first and hoovered them all up and made them all accounted for. Maybe as we were getting into other iterations of the franchise near the end, it may have been a Beast Wars character. Okay. Next question. Hayla says that if Jack Lawrence, bless him, if Jack draws Roller with some of his own mannerisms, this is Jack's mannerisms, who does he draw with my mannerisms? Well, Jack saw that tweet and he said, if you want, Jim, you can tell them that I draw Rung with your mannerisms, my mannerisms. So that doesn't help my anti-Mary Sue argument at all, does it? So thanks, Jack. Thank you very much. Why did Rewind 2 and the duplicate briefcase not vanish when the duplicate Lost Light was cancelled out? That is a good question. There have been lots of those questions. I'm just going to have a little think. Okay, well, the briefcase didn't get cancelled out because it was a new briefcase. It was reconstructed by Brainstorm from scratch, using new parts. So that's that. The Rewind thing is more complicated, so we'll come back to that a bit later. According to Butel, I've implied that Rodimus was conflicted on Drift and Ratchet's relationship. Could I elaborate on how I think Rodimus feels about it? Did I imply that he was conflicted? Maybe. Rodimus is pleased for them. If we're talking at the end of the run, Lost Light 25, no, Rodimus is cool with it. You know, and as he says in the issue correctly, Ratchet's a keeper. So I don't think Rodimus ever, sorry to the Drift Rod people out there, I don't think Rodimus ever saw him and Drift as a long-term thing. Maybe a thing, maybe it was a thing sometimes, but it wasn't like, to use a human analogy, they weren't going to settle down together. No, it was good when it happened. So yeah, he's cool with it. Erin says, are there any fan-interpreted pairings that I particularly dislike or love? That's a dangerous question, isn't it? This is my thinking face. I have never really... See, whatever I say, people are going to be upset, aren't they? I don't really see the Rodimus Magnus thing. That was certainly never intended to be. I never scattered any breadcrumbs for people to follow on that one. So, you know, if in the world of fanfic you want to make Rodimus and Minimus a thing, then you can. Hey guy, you're asking me questions here. I can't. I've got double streamed questions here. So yeah, Rodimus and Magnus. Not really getting it. Let's have a look. I'm having to scroll. Has the way, so Suvesi asks me, has a way a panel turned out to be drawn ever surprised me? Oh yeah, all the time. Jack and Alex and Nick and the others and Brendan. Yeah, it's always better than I've got in my head. I'm trying to think of something which has surprised me in a way that really was unexpected. Goodness me. I think, I don't know if it was surprised, but when Megatron strides onto the battlefield at the end of Dying of the Light, that splash panel there, that was, yeah, I was surprised in a very good way. I was surprised at how amazing it looked, frankly. Not that I didn't expect Alex to deliver, but that was a particularly epic scene and moment, thanks to him. Is Chrome Dome a top or a bottom? No, I'm not going to answer that one. AKU. I'm going to take I'm going to pass on that one. Maybe next time. D at DO154, etc. says, greetings from Turkey. Hello, thank you for asking me a question. If I could rewrite More Than Meets the Eye and Lost Light all over again, would I change anything? Yeah, no, definitely I would. And I guess this touches upon other questions about, you know, what do I regret? What didn't I like about it? I'd probably decompress some of it. Some of the early issues are very tightly packed. And I know that's good for some people, but they're a little busy, the early issues, so I'd space things out a bit more. I would definitely have more stories focusing on the non-core cast, and I'd have had more stories set on the Lost Light during the Mutineers takeover. I always wanted to do 1 and 2 parters or whatever around characters like Hound and Inferno and Huffer and Gears and Blue Streak and Mirage and all those people, the sort of classic G1 characters, and to look into their sort of the backroom stuff. I'm sure there was going to be something with the Lost Light Insider, with a new character being behind that, but the other ones I've just mentioned would be in that story really. Just something which the story would have happened while the main cast were on the ship, just off panel, just doing other things to give the idea that, or to sell the idea that this was a a ship with 200 people on. So yeah, I'd have done that. I probably wouldn't have decapitated Red Alert in that way. May not have killed Trail Cutter. What else? I may have had another DJD conflict or story before they caught up with the crew. I'll keep thinking about that and come back to it. The 4 acts of Conjuncts Endura, an actual thing or another getaway lie, asks Chen Arbel. Well, Chen, it wasn't a lie, it was true. That was the real deal. How did the Lost Light crew, specifically Megatron, react to the deaths of Optimus, Soundwave and Starscream? Asks, God, why did you make me? That's a nihilistic handle. How did the Lost Light crew, specifically Megatron, react to the death? Oh, so okay, so this would have been after the grand finale. Well, let's focus on Megatron. How did Megatron react to the deaths of Optimus, Soundwave and Starscream? Megatron would have been... Goodness me, that's a difficult question. Well, the easy answer is conflicted about all 3, really. He would have been most cut up over Starscream's death, because there was probably a lot of unfinished business between him and Starscream, and the pacifist Megatron, the reformed Megatron, never got to meet Starscream, if you know what I mean. So, and that probably eats away at him. There was, unfinished business there. Closely followed by Optimus. Megatron would have been incredibly interested in what Soundwave had done, and very proud of him. So I imagine he was bitterly upset and grieved over all 3 deaths in slightly different ways. Right, I think I'm still alive. Somebody will tell me. Somebody tell me somehow if the feed stops. Right, okay. Let me pick another one. So many questions. Russ asks me what my favourite moment from More Than Meets the Eye and Lost Light is, and why. I think the message from Rewind in 16, conversation between Brainstorm and Chrome Dome in the same issue. I like the bit when Rodimus is reacting to his future dead body, what he thinks is his future dead body. I like the Megatron and Ravage scene in Slaughterhouse. I like a lot of moments in 25. I like Rung punching the moon. I like writing Starscream's testimony in Megatron's trial. That was good, fun. I like when I first saw the DJD designs from Alex, when they first made their appearance. Is it possible to keep this video archived on my page for repeat viewing? Yes. Does Rewind have colour changing pants? Yes, he does, yeah, and fascinates Brainstorm. He's trying to, no one knows exactly how they change colour. It could be an outlier. What else? I love seeing, in terms of favourite moments, I love when I discover a new background detail that Jack has drawn in, something steeped in character and body language, some little story that's playing out in the background. Would I consider going to MCM Comic Con? Yes. Not a question. Oh dear, I've answered it. Sorry. Right, and the next one. Was there any significance to the numbers 77, which is Rodimus's room, 80, no. 89 against, no. 101 for, no. 113, yes. That's just the first Transformers comic I got way back, Transformers UK. And the end of that question from Anna Poda was that the fact that they all added up to 190. No, sorry, that's my fault for using numbers again and tricking everyone into thinking that things have significance. What comes next? Where can we hope to find the next Roberts work? Good question. There's hopefully something coming out soon-ish, and then plans for something different after that. I will let you know on Twitter. Chris asks me, Berrytron asks me, what do Transformers do with the gifted vials of innermost energon after they've recovered or died? So, if you are fortunate enough to have been given a vial of innermost energon when you're sick and you recover, then you can choose. And also, because when you gift innermost energon to the living or dead, then that is it. There's no expectation that it will be returned to you. But if the person's sick and they recover, then they can re-gift it to you. It'll be a bit sick if they gave it to someone else. Then give it back to you, and you can choose to accept it or not, or you can keep it as like a constant reminder of the affection with which you are held, in which you are held. If you're dead, if it's been given to you and you're dead, then a bit like donating an organ, it can be recycled, like Ratchet asked. You know, the thing about doing these Q&As is that when I get a sort of a difficult question or a complicated question, I've got to stop and have a good think about it. Right, so there's somebody, a mad scientist apologist, has put some panels from issue 14, I think, talking about the layout of the panel suggests it's Overlord Spark being harvested. And he says, but it looks as if that we're looking at something in the Functionist universe. So that scene at the beginning of 14 is in the regular universe, and that is the Overlord's spark being harvested. The Functionists still had a function, even in our universe, even after the Senate really took over and consolidated power, they were marginalised. They still had things to do. Why did World not accept Ratchet's gift in 25? Because it was to do with his own perception of his disability, and he always felt that he needed fixing and that there was a deficiency somewhere, and he realised belatedly that was the wrong way to look at it, and there wasn't, and he was complete. At what point, asks Unicron.com, did I come up with the idea that Rung was actually Primus incarnate? At the beginning, but after Chaos Theory. So, if I'm honest, yes, after Chaos Theory. So the dialogue in Chaos Theory, yeah, or maybe there was something subconscious in... No, it wasn't. I just thought, in between writing that and preparing for More Than Meets the Eye, that was when Rung, in my head, became Primus. You know, and that's why you have the serial number in issue 1 as proof for the skeptics down the line that it was considered from the beginning. You lot asking me all these questions. More questions. I'm just going off to Twitter at the moment. Any thoughts? Matt asks me. Any thoughts of what happened to Orion Pax in the Functionist universe? Not really. I mean, he would have done incredibly heroic things, but Megatron was always the figurehead. They would have worked very well together. Megatron may have been a bit of a role reversal in that Megatron was the mentor, perhaps. But as an aside, there was never any question that Orion could survive and come through the portal in time for Crucible, because there was so much going on, there were so many characters, there were so many events that having to account for Orion there and give him enough time and explore him and Megatron's relationship on the stage, I mean, there just wasn't time. So, sorry, Orion. So that's the same reason Terminus didn't make it through as well. With Terminus as well, you had all the from a reader's perspective, you had those questions around, well, did Megatron ever find out that Terminus lied to him? No, he didn't. There would have been an expectation that those things would have needed to have been addressed on the page. Right. Oh my goodness. Well, listen. Spades of 9. You've asked me lots and lots of questions. You've asked me 14. No, you've asked me 26 questions. Wow. Okay. Well, let me pick let me pick a few at random because that's a lot of questions. What's with Connie, and what was the actual plan with her? If you could have had more time. So, yes. So Connie was the name of the firstborn, and she was never given that name on the page. That was on Twitter that I sort of revealed that. So what was the plan with her? Well, that she would have been, in very broad terms, because this was never explored, this is never mapped out in too much detail, she would have become part of the scavengers. Essentially, they would have had to look after her. She wouldn't have had like accelerated growth or anything. She would have pretty much stayed young. She would have been wanted by Scorponok as a way, as a way of continuing his plan. They had vague ideas of vague plans for one of the scavengers to sacrifice themselves, protecting her. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't. Like I say, I can't give you any detailed descriptions of that. What exactly does warborn mean? Simply that they were. They came to being in the war, either as some sort of cold construction or some freak, small-scale, random hotspot. Okay. Sorry, Spades of Nine. You asked me lots of questions, but I don't have time for them all. Maybe we'll do this again. Erin, you've already. Erin asked me, would I have given more coverage to myths like the Shimmer or Blurred Data if the series had continued? Maybe, but I didn't have. See, I haven't. Sometimes I do have a lot of ideas mapped out and a lot of lore worked out. Stuff like the Shimmer and Blurred Data, you can, one can develop that on the hoof. Really, you can decide if you're going to. You might discover in writing an issue there's a good opportunity to talk a bit more about one of those things or to invent a new myth, and you'd have sort of done it live when you're writing it, so to speak. Are there any specific points, asks Christmas in July, in the series when we would have played Stan Bush's... It is Stan Bush. Christmas in July said Stan Lee. I don't think Stan Lee, R.I.P., performed the touch or dare. But yes, there have been lots of times when they'd have been played. They're played mostly all the time in Rodimus's head, for one thing. The moment when the montage and the annual, when you see all his Till All Are One moments, they're playing in his head, definitely. At those points, probably Dare. Is Dare the better song? Who knows? Frindle Babin, have I answered a question from you already, Frindle? In the Shadow Play, Glitch says that using his outlier ability causes him intense pain. Did the pain ever subside, or is his future transformation addiction a means of managing that pain? Like clenching and unclenching a hand to relieve a cramp. I really like that idea. I can't lie and say that I thought of that. I didn't. I thought the pain would have subsided. The transformation addiction is just gives him a hell of a rush. Okay. Is Cyclonus actually rich? Not anymore, sadly. He was rich. He was a landowner. But value can rise and fall. Cybertronian real estate, well, the planet's gone now anyway. He doesn't own anything on New Cybertron. Or maybe he does. Maybe him and Tailgate have invested in land. Unicron.com says, if the series had gone on for another 100 issues, my God, would I have written more of the DJD, or was the ending I gave them really intended to be their end? Yes, it was really intended to be their end. If I'd had more space, to go back to my earlier question, I would have, if I started again, I would have spaced things out a bit and given them more stories. But no, they were never going to come back. Flashbacks only. Sorry. Oh, these are really good questions, everybody. Rob Leese Jones asks, was Tarn/Glitch's transformation addiction a plotline that was curtailed or dropped? Not deliberately curtailed. I just didn't know. I didn't really think of much more to do with it. Tarn was a very rich character, or had lots of gimmicks, depending on your perspective, and it was difficult sometimes to find room to explore them all. I'd always wanted to do more about his voice killing people remotely, and I'd always wanted to do a telephone scene, and I did get to do that in the end with the flashback in Lost Light. Flame Transformers is orange. Says, I left Flame's fate purposely ambiguous. Right? Question mark. Well, I mean, I don't know. I didn't think, I'll make people wonder. You're invited to assume that he survived. Okay, there we go. So yes, happy to confirm Flame survived. And indeed, at the end of this question, I'm told that I was pretty adamant that he was still alive at TFCon. Well, there you go. I can doubly confirm that. Ellie Claire says that she liked 25. Thank you, Ellie. But did I have the Drift Ratchet romance planned from the very start? No. When and how did my plans for them change or evolve? As I went along. I think by the time they came back for Dying of the Light, I thought this could go that way. But here's the secret: it wasn't till I really sat down to think about 25 that I decided to give them that particular ending. If I'd had more time and space, would I have covered the uneasy Rift Dratchet Rodimus triangle in more depth? I never thought it was never intended to be uneasy. It was, like I said, Rodimus was pretty relaxed about it. In as much as it existed, he was pretty cool about it. Who was the Ekaterina asks me, who was the mentor teaching Megatron medicine? It seemed like Megatron's skills outmatched those of Ratchet. Well, someone else asked me this. They nearly did. I think Ratchet. It's a bit like, is Hulk always the strongest? And yeah, you want him to be. I think Ratchet's still the ultimate. But people have skills in different areas too. If you look at the various fields of expertise within all of medicine, for us, you're not going to get a surgeon that's good at everything. So, Megatron's expertise, you could say, was around this sort of zero spark, neurology, and things like that. Who was his mentor? He's self-taught. I think he's the world's most ferocious autodidact. Gary the Neutral says, will Brainstorm continue living fine, or will he eventually die from the injuries he sustained in the accident in the lab in issue 25? Or can he just get repaired, or did he choose life support? Well, we're sort of straying into the territory of, it's for you to decide. When I wrote that, I didn't have in mind that he was going to be able to fix himself. That's his fate. He might live a long time, but he's going to be very constrained in what he can do. Poor Brainstorm. Des asks me, who are the Malware Brigade? He thinks a faction or subgroup that with that title would have been great as the DJD and Phase 6's. Yeah, sometimes you just a name appeals, and sometimes you're just sort of scattering world-building confetti around, and you might go back to something and you might not. I always sort of wanted to go back to the Malware Brigade. I mean, I think it probably stems from being fascinated as a kid with reference to the software wars on someone's tech specs. Someone that knows more than me will tell me who that is, but was it Chrome Dome? And it Guzzles, maybe. Anyway, yes, I thought there are times when you think to yourself, if you were to write a real Transformers story, and this would be bad or I'm going to say, they wouldn't be running around, they'd be fighting remotely, they'd be using drones, hyper sophisticated drones to fight, or more likely they'd be using viruses to fight. So the malware brigade would have been a hopefully more visually interesting version of that. Someone else can write that now. Josh asks me, were there ever any plans to bring back Rewind 1? Or was Overlord's hand obscured in more than meets the I-16 just to keep us guessing? Wow, okay, let me have a little drink. So, let's tie together various questions here. So originally, Rewind, there's a lot of disclosure that you're about to hear. So originally Rewind 1 was going to come back eventually. So Rewind 1, we would have learnt, would have discovered, because if you remember, Rewind 1 couldn't shrink. Right back in the first issue, we established that he turns into a giant USB stick, apparently, essentially, and he can't transform. But we would have learnt that thanks to the intense trauma or panic or fear of being trapped in a slow cell with Overlord, his sort of deep-seated defense mechanism or reflex to survive would have meant that he did rediscover the ability to transform and shrink. So he would have shrunk to this size, and Overlord would have grabbed him as the ship exploded. So definitely when that issue was drawn, what was it now? What issue contained the flashback? 16. And maybe one other issue too, but yes, the fist was clenched or obscured. And this is where it gets more complicated. So we would have discovered that Overlord and Rewind were discovered by the Galactic Council. Now, some of that happened. Overlord was discovered by the Council. Originally, the Council would find Overlord and Rewind, and they would have used Rewind in an experiment that they'd been working on for years. And there are shades of this, in a sense, in the finale. Basically, they would have created a weapon that punches its way into parallel universes, into other dimensions. No, I hate that. Into parallel universes, and they would have fixed Rewind, and they would have given him a suit of armor, like the armor necessary, the suit necessary to jump from universe to universe, and to do that after the first successful jump, and he ends up in a different universe. He would have just discovered that it was very difficult to find the power source necessary to jump again, a bit like Back to the Future, because he wanted to get home, a bit like Quantum Leap. It's just stealing it from all these other sources. So the Council wanted to use Rewind as a weapon. They hadn't intended for him to jump into different universes. It would have been some sort of super powerful directed teleportation weapon, but it would have malfunctioned and he would have been pushed sideways. Oh, actually, he would have been pushed in space and time, so he would have ended up in the distant past in a different universe. What a lot of detail. What a lot of detail in this story that didn't happen in the end. So the reason why Rewind 2 survived Slaughterhouse and didn't get cancelled out is because by that point, Rewind 1 wasn't in our universe anymore. See? And so Rewind 1 would have been off panel, off stage, having these adventures, fighting his way back to our universe to be reunited with Chrome Dome, and encountering all sorts of different iterations of Transformers, and I guess different Chrome Domes, but he wanted the original. And had we had a series 4, season 4, or had I had enough space in season 3 to do the Chrome Dome Rewind storyline that I wanted to do, it would have been around the return of Rewind Mark 1. Okay? Now the bollocks thing about this, as far as the Chrome Dome and the two rewinds are concerned, as you would have picked up on already, is that if Rewind 1 comes back, then one of them, Rewind 1 or 2, would have to go. One of them is going to be cancelled out. And I had in mind an entire issue just with the 3 of them. And believe me, the science, it would have worked out scientifically. There would have been a reason for this, but they are aware of what their situation is, and they can exercise choice. They can exercise agency over which of the 2 rewinds is going to go. And by this point, you would have hopefully taken Rewind 2 to your hearts, and poor old Rewind 1. Okay, yes, we all love Rewind 1, so that may have been enough. But also, Rewind 1 would have spent literally millions of years jumping from universe to universe to get back to Chrome Dome. But here's the other thing, okay? So back when Rewind is in a coma in issue 12, and Chrome Dome speaks to him, and we don't know what Chrome Dome says, but what Chrome Dome does is he confesses something. And this ties in with Rewind's alleged allergy when it comes to ultraviolet light. And so a storyline right back at the beginning, before I even physically wrote issue 1, the idea was that Chrome Dome was involved in Dominus Ambus's disappearance. And when basically Chrome Dome was tasked by Prowl with removing from Rewind Mark 1's memories the fate of Dominus Ambus, and then removing it from removing the precise details of his disappearance from his own memory too. And so when Chrome Dome and Rewind first meet at the Relinquishment Centre clinic, it wasn't long after Chrome Dome had done that, you see. And Chrome Dome would have been burdened with this guilt, and he would have confessed to Rewind when Rewind was in a coma in issue 12. And if you go back to issue 12, you will see that in that panel, Rewind's recording. So even though he's in a coma, he's recording everything, including Chrome Dome's message, confession. And so while Rewind was universe hopping, at some point he would have accessed this memory, this recording, discovered what Chrome Dome did, and his motivation for returning to our universe would have gone from a desire to be reunited with his love to a desire to have a reckoning, or to take revenge, or to, it became more complicated than love. And so the idea would be that when Chrome Dome when Rewind 1 came back into our universe, this 3-way conversation between the 2 Rewinds in Chrome Dome would have been very interesting, because what Chrome Dome did to Rewind 1, he would also have done to Rewind 2, but it would have been news to Rewind 2. So, right. And what I haven't said was that the Functionists' plan with this teleportation armour had been to model the armour on Primus, because they would have reckoned that some Transformers are very superstitious, and if they could teleport Primus onto the battlefield, it would sow discord and confusion, blah, blah, blah. So Rewind 1 looked like Primus. And everything I've just told you was more or less going to happen. I'll come back to that. And when I absolutely definitively had to ditch that storyline was when I came to write the last part of the Mutineers trilogy. And that scene in issue 12 where we have the Scavengers interlude was originally an interlude set in the Marvel Transformers universe. And I wrote this scene, and it was set in the Target 2006 story. And in Target 2006, for those who don't know, Galvatron travels back in time and fights Megatron and tries to build a weapon to blow up Unicron in 2006. But within that story, Omega Supreme is there, and then he isn't, and his disappearance is never accounted for. So this 5-page flashback would have utilised some original Furman dialogue, and then we would have introduced what appeared to be Primus arriving from nowhere, fighting Omega Supreme for reasons, defeating Omega Supreme, and then hopping out of there, basically using Omega's power to hop and take him a step closer, very close actually, because by this point, 1986, it's a different universe, but he's getting closer to our time again. So that would have been that. And it was written, and two things. By this point, I was thinking, I've already got a lot of stuff compressed into the last 12 issues. And I don't think I can find room to have Rewind come back and to have that special conversation and to give that the attention it deserves. That was one reason. And the other reason was I'd gone really cold on the idea of Chrome Dome doing that to Rewind. And at the beginning, like way back before issue 1 came out, when you're mapping out all these stories, that seemed like an interesting thing. It was all about memory, and it was using Chrome Dome's abilities against him, and it was all sort of high drama. But I didn't like, as those characters came to life, and particularly that relationship came to life, I didn't like that to be part of their relationship. So I was like this about it. And so we've got references in Dark Cybertron, in issue 14, to Prowl knowing something and potentially using it to blackmail him. And I sort of put those things in there thinking, well, I can pick up on that, or I don't have to. And in the end, I emailed David. I'm trying to think whether it was Carlos or David. I think it was David, my editor, and said, look, I don't know how I feel about this anymore. And we decided that, don't go there. So I've just seen Chrome Dome as a bottom on the screen, so that's thrown me. Hopefully that's explained the UV allergy, the sort of hit prowl blackmail angle, the lost scene from the Mutineers trilogy. And at the end of the Functionist universe, end of Dissolution, originally you would have had an epilogue where Primus, i.e. Rewind, attacks the Functionist Council and is responsible for them merging with Vector Sigma that would have led to the Crucible events. So it was all tying together, and then I sort of loosened some of those ties, but still, I still would have been able to pursue the story if I wanted to. So here we are, right? So canonically, Chrome Dome didn't do that to Rewind. Prowl's blackmail is of a different nature, to be determined, to be invented. But in my mind, that original storyline went. So that's a lot of answer. All on the back of Josh's question, but a lot of other people had asked questions too. Did I have any more plans for 10? Asks Clementine. I would have used him more. Again, if we'd spaced things out differently, I would have liked to do more with 10. I always felt a bit bad with that because he deserved his own story, much like Roller. Would I have fleshed out 10's infatuation with Magnus? I probably would have just had that as a gentle sort of backdrop. It would have been sweet and gentle and innocent. Dear Robert, says Sam Rubio, why did Nautica say that Skids wasn't a great guy? In issue number 9, am I implying that love made her blind to his mistake? No, it was just, she just didn't regard him as her best friend anymore because of what had been done to her, what had been extracted. So he was another person. She didn't dislike him, but she no longer had that connection to him, which was sad. Here we go. If Starscream had to make an appearance, when and what would have happened? Actually, that would have been fun. It would have been fun at the very beginning of Megatron's time on board, when he wasn't quite set, he hadn't properly embraced pacifism. And it would have been interesting in different ways if he'd appeared near the end. It would have been nice to have written a scene with him and with Megatron and Starscream in the cell, had Starscream still been around. What terrible things did Chrome Dome do? Well, we've discussed what he was originally going to have done. Red asks, was it intentional? You guys are still talking about Chrome Dome being a bottom. Oh my god. Was it intentional that the lightning bolt shaped cuts that Cyclonus put on his face after Tailgate's apparent death look like the red paint on Drift's face at Ratchet's funeral? Not on my part, no. I like the idea of that though. Sorry, no, that wasn't intentional. Zoe says, I was wondering why Megatron, she waves, hi Zoe, I was wondering why Megatron says he hasn't seen Minimus for centuries, but the Lost Light is still at the same time with Optimus Prime. Right, okay, so that's because of the Warren. So that's because when... it's timey-wimey, isn't it? So time... The Lost Light's essentially jumped back. Megatron's Lost Light, the last light, has essentially come back in time to rejoin the main crew. Favourite Skids references or asks about a background character in the last issue of More Than Meets the Eye. I will retweet that. That's a question for. I don't think. Sorry, it's not good for you guys that can't see it. I don't think that's in Lost Light or More Than Meets the Eye. I'll retweet it and someone else can answer. Jedi Flaherty. Do I think I'll ever write these characters again? Maybe a short prose story from time to time. If there was a big fat hardback Ultimate Edition omnibus thing, I'd like to do something new to make that worth your while. Well, to enhance the package. So maybe in that context. Give a time when fan reaction to an event in the comics surprised me. Asks or instructs Rekha Booty. God, there must be tons of times. I'm just trying to think. Let me come back to that one. Oh dear. No, I will think about that. You guys are quite hard to predict with your reactions sometimes, generally. I thought Dissolution would go down better than it did. What else? The reaction to Getaway being strung up and having his mouth removed. That was controversial, wasn't it? I was surprised at how people reacted to that. Are Fort Max, Red Alert and Cerebros in any sort of relationship? Some polyamorous three-way conjugates? Let's just say yes. Yes, they are. It works really well for them. Sorry, this is Forever Sounds About Right. Oh, good handle. Does Grand Maximus exist as a member of Fort Max's family? No, I don't think Grand Maximus exists in the IDW universe. Were Rodimus and Drift Amica and Dura? Their relationship was definitely... They could have been, and nobody would have batted an eye. I never really thought... I mean, they may have had the ceremony off panel. That would have made sense. Reckon and Ruling says, what exactly is the Simanzi massacre? Well, the information's in the title already. It was a bad, bloody fight. It's one of those things which it just gives a sprinkle of colour to the story. Somebody should write a story about the Simanzi massacre. Maggie Storm says, did Rodimus know that Overlord was on board or not? Yes. Is there something I really regret leaving out? Well, I really wanted to... Well, no, I'm in two minds. The little fanboy in me would have loved to have been able to say that I contributed to the original Marvel Transformers universe, which I could have done through that Target 2006 interlude. But it would have been very indulgent, even by my standards. So, and it would have meant that Rewind storyline, which, wasn't too good in the end. Was there anything you hadn't planned to write but did anyway? Most of it, I don't know. Did Rung really create all those matrices, asks Marvel's Asphalt Man? Or did he just have them stored in his secret... Oh, I should have read the rest of this question, shouldn't I? Or did he just have them stored in his secret ass compartment the whole time? His arse compartment. No, Marvel's Asphalt Man. He really did create those matrices. He basically used most of his body to do so. And Rung's arse compartment is not as capacious as people seem to think. Did I have any interactions between the Lost Lights officers, specifically the captains Magnus and Drift, that I didn't get to include or didn't choose to include? Not specifically. I mean, that's the type of thing I'd be able to answer that if I'd physically written it and then had to cut it out for space. And I did do that quite a lot with some dialogue, but rarely with entire scenes. So I can't think of any. I did quite like the vibe we were getting, the Magnus, Rodimus, Drift triumvirate in the early days, and then Megatron came along and squared that circle, squared that triangle. But no, sorry. Anna Barner asks, what was the Scavengers arc going to be about? Originally, there was going to be a 5-part Scavengers storyline, which was going to wrap up their adventures. I wanted them to have a trade to themselves. And it was going to be a longer, more detailed version of what you saw in issues 14 and 15. But there would have been more scenes, more locations, more of a chase. There would have been a sort of a more last stand type feel about it. I had vaguely an idea of some sort of floating oil rig which they had to sort of weaponize and defend and things. Maybe too similar to Dying of the Light. Was there going to be more on the guiding hand? Not really. I mean, it's always nice, knowing that they were going to be the reveal at the end was going to be about them. It would have been nice to seed more information about them as we went along. But if you look at Lost Light in particular, as our season 3, the guiding hand are often mentioned, or they appear as statues or whatever. There's quite a lot of guiding hand stuff in there. Oh, here we go. Whatever happened to Pius Maximus? Well, that's a reaction that surprised me, is this love for an interest in Pius Maximus. I think it's just because he's got a very cool name, let's face it. Whatever happened to him? He, wow. I sort of figured that he died, as many people did. And maybe he died with a butchered mind in the cell where we last saw him, but let's hope not. How and when did the original Ultra Magnus die? I don't know, Peter. I don't. I'm sorry. It's that thing where you create the details you need if you think you're going to need them, or if you need them as you're writing. I don't sort of, and I don't mean this facetiously at all, but it's some of the questions like that I'm asked. I'd need to sort of have a TF wiki-sized bank of information that 90% of which I never used, and I don't. Is Percy and Brainstorm really being together as a couple, or just being closest friends forever? Well, if you had to put a gun to my head, I'd say they were a proper couple. How much did Farmer hate being stationed at Delphi, even before the DJD? Also, what would you envision his hollow form looking like? There's a lot of Farmer fans out there, isn't there? I don't think he hated it at Delphi before the DJD made his life shit. I think he may have been a bit grumpy and he may have missed Ratchet. But yeah, he was in command. He would have run a good Medibay or Medicenter. And I think even before he sort of fell from grace, him and Ambulon, they certainly had a respect for each other, grudging respect, even first aid. What would his hollow form look like? What would his hollow form look like? All the Farmer fans sort of think, waiting for the right answer here. Right, when I say things like, I'll come back to that, I want somebody out there to remind me that I've said that, and ask me on Twitter, and I will tell you. Do I think I have another Transformers opus in me? Asks Jedi again. I don't know, actually. Well, I had plans for a 12-issue series about something, about a particular character, and I won't tell you what it is, just in case one day it comes into being. What's the Conjunct Enduro ceremony like? Asks Thomas. Will Cyclonus and Tailgate become conjuncts? They certainly are conjuncts by the time issue 25 comes round. And what's the ceremony like? Well, it's pretty much as sketched out by Getaway. I've got 1 minute, 56 seconds remaining, but what I'll do, if I can do this, I'll just start, I'll start another live stream. We'll see if we can do that, and I'll get through some more questions. Okay? Yeah, so when I cut out, give it a few seconds, and we'll see if I come back. I don't know, there could be some weird Instagram rule which says you can't do another live video, in which case it's goodbye. But if I can, I'll do some more questions. With 1 minute to go, Ellie asks, I understand that writing almost every character comes from a place of empathy, but is there any particular character I relate to the most? Anyone I find comparing myself to in certain situations? Not one particular. There's sort of times when I guess you do relate to certain characters, different characters. I'm not going to say wrong because obviously that just plays into people's hands. Goodness, I don't know. There's bits of all of them, really. Chrome Dome, maybe. Right, 30 seconds to go, but hopefully we'll do another one of these. when I was writing Swerve, did a Grant Morrison style scene between me and Swerve end up on the cutting room floor? No, I can honestly say, as indulgent and fourth wall breaking as things got, I never would have put myself in the comic, literally or through rung, so no. All right, 3 seconds to go. We'll see if we can keep going for a... Hello again. Hello. Sorry about that. My data ran out. I've had to spend £5 buying some more. Because what are we? And we are 22 minutes from the end of this month, and I ran out of data before it gets renewed. So anyway, hello. What do I want to see in another iteration of Transformers? So an inclusivity, a variety of characters and places. I just want, I want it to be embraced by people again. I want it to be to continue to engender that sense of community. Right, what next? We'll do another 20 minutes maybe, and then we'll call it a day. Right, so the other day Nick Roach, you may have heard of him, he posted a page that was drawn for More Than Meets the Eye, but was never made it into the issue. And it was from it was one half of a 2-page script that I wrote at speed. And I mean, there's an NDA still in, I guess still in force. So I can't really say too much, but I mean, I will say that it was to do with the what became the expanded Hasbroverse. And what I can remember from those 2 pages is that Rodimus had just come from the fancy dress party in Swerves, which so there was some dialogue in there that I recycled. A lone Megatron in a sea of worlds was in there in that originally. Chrome Dome and Rewind questions, which I've answered. Another question about Farmer. How did Ratchet interpret and feel about Farmer's last words, in particular, my beloved Ratchet? I don't think... I think there was an imbalance in feeling between Ratchet and Farmer. I think before Farmer's fall from grace, I think Ratchet certainly cared for him and respected his abilities as a doctor. But there may have been a bit of a brainstorm quark dynamic, I think, to that. A lot of Drift and Ratchet questions. How many times, asks a little bumblebee, have Rodimus and Drift slapped each other's ass? I've signed an NDA. I can't disclose that, I'm afraid. Zoe asks, is there any special meaning to the patterns on Drift in issue 25? Yes and no. Yes, that's why they're there, but I can't tell you precisely what each one means. But it's it's to denote moments in their life, or either literally or symbolically. Well, what I mean is, it might be that a sort of a version almost of chronolinguism. There's certain patterns that can be really steeped in meaning, or even spectralism, where colours have certain meanings. Maybe that's the same with patterns, and they evoke certain times in their life, or emotional truths, maybe. And I'll be honest with you, when I wrote the scene with Rodimus and Drift saying goodbye to each other in 25 and the close-up on their hands, I didn't have chronolinguistics in mind. I love the way Jack drew that close-up, though. And it certainly looks as if there is... and this is something you can only really say in the context of this continuity, post-chronolinguistics. It looks as if there's a message there. And that was from Promise. Promise asked that question, and I'm going to give Promise a Rodimus star for saying Lost Light 25 spoilers below. So that's very considerate. Is Cyclonus actually a good singer, asks Zeke Muffin, or does only Tailgate think he is? No, I think he is a good singer. He's a bit like an opera singer in that his talent isn't always appreciated by the uncultured. And Tailgate would have liked whatever he was doing at that stage in their relationship. Who would win Shoot Shoot Bang Bang out of the final Lost Light crew, asks Jet Jet. Probably Whirl, but he'd bend the rules. Inknose asks me, says that the end of Lost Light was a kind of love letter to fanfic, which it absolutely was. And indeed, as Inknose says, the life things take on in the imagination beyond the story. That's very well put. And how characters can change hands and have new lives. Yes, indeed. What are my favourite fanfictions? Interpreting that word as broadly as I like. Well, in terms of actual fan fictions, I haven't. It's been a long time since I read any, partly because of, for professional reasons. I've been out of circulation for a while. I guess, if you like, interpreting that very broadly then, some of the fan art that I see that sort of sells an entire scene or more commonly a relationship or a dynamic between characters, I love to see that type of thing. Particularly around the scavengers, there's they've had relatively little time on the page, but some of the fan art around them really speaks to a volume of information, of interdynamics within the team that we don't see on the page. So I like that stuff. Alex Cole asks, was the recurrence of the phrase trapped light tied to an unused reveal, or always meant to be left mysterious? Or did I miss something obvious? No, you didn't miss anything obvious, Alex. There was trapped light in the sense of trapped within Rung, or indeed trapped within the Matrix, but in both senses of both senses of the idea. Scotty asks, was I ever tempted to have Unicron and Primus having a face-off? He references the UK stories, Legacy of Unicron, where that happened on the astral plane, kind of, or early universe, actually. Not really, Scotty, not really. I sort of, I wanted to keep the Lost Light storyline sort of in and of itself, just because it was tidier, neater that way. Okay. Stuart Webb has asked about the Omega Supreme thing, so that's been answered. And he also asked what would have been the big cliffhanger for season 3 before the compression. Probably, and I can't give you much detail, but it probably would have been around the Infinites and the Firstborn. There would have been, as a character, Scorponok would have been a bigger villain. He would have been a season-ending type villain, and he would have had an army at his disposal, both in terms of the Infinites and the sort of the army that he'd built up. So yeah, that it would have been around him. Okay. I can't run out of questions. I'm going to scroll back down again. Okay, Inkthulu asks, or says, I'm known to have a special style of writing, such as knowing every little detail and planning the entire story years in advance. Can I tell you a bit about the process when writing? Not every single detail is mapped out ahead of time. A lot of it is. A lot of the sort of spine of the story is. but you've got to give it a bit of two things. You've got to give a bit of wriggle room, because there's things can happen like Megatron becoming an Autobot that you're going to have to accommodate, and you've got to allow yourself to have new ideas as you're writing, and to find a way to slide those ideas into the story, or indeed, like the Chrome Dome and Rewind thing, to jettison stuff which you start to go cold on. So you can't be so tightly packed that you don't give yourself any room to adapt. And you find, so I think it may be someone else asked or said, isn't it? It's surprising how you can remember everything. And I don't remember every single thing. But bearing in mind, you're thinking about this story every day. You're whether you're writing it or not, it's always in your head, and so you're living and breathing it. It becomes more easier if you think of it like that to understand how you can keep a lot of plates spinning, because you're examining the story from every angle, and you're turning it over in your head, and you're trying to think how best to tell it. And it's like picking up details and examining them and thinking, well, how can I best fit this into something else? And by doing that, you tend to know things exhaustively. It's your own creations by and large, and you do come to really understand, or you become very familiar with how things are supposed to fit together. Which issue or arc was the hardest or easiest to write, asks Gundam Joe. Shadow Play was hard to fit into 3 issues. Crucible was hard, I guess for a similar reason really. It was sort of trying to find the right balance, given there was a lot of characters and events. The end of dying, I keep doing that, Remain in Light, was very hard to scale down into 22 pages. And I've said before, we were originally going to have the briefcase opening moment there, and the page running out of sequence, which was right to chuck that and sort of postpone that. I found the two-parter around Skids and Nautica on Troja Major difficult. I couldn't quite get that one to mesh. What else? Similarly, and talking about regrets and things, I do recognise that it was suboptimal. It was bad to have had Cyclonus sustain those injuries at the end of 47, and then to have him up and about in 48 with sort of not much in between those two events. So I would have done that differently. Okay. Was there anything to Farmer and Tarn besides business? Is that... am I being asked if there was any shippy stuff going on there? In which case, no, sorry. Tarn's a bad guy, and he's principally responsible for Farmer's mental collapse. Casey is Frozen asks if I had any plans to write Optimus's character further after Chaos Theory. I would have liked to. I would have done or liked to do some stories with the so-called Outlaws. That was how they were referred in my notes. So Pax and Roller and his team that we meet at the beginning of Chaos Theory. It would have been there's a little mini-series in there somewhere. And I would have liked to have told more stories in the Functionist universe after Megatron stays behind with Pax. Goosey asks, would Cyclonus and Will become Amica Endura? Yes, I think they would. This is Twitter putting things out of order. Girthy Craig, I'm not going to try and unpack that name, says, why am I so into Roller, and why am I making him? So him, her. Why am I making they or them even, so into Roller. I can't explain why I'm making you so into Roller. Roller just has that effect on people thanks to Jack's lascivious designs. Okay. Jesse, Robots with Coffee, Jesse asks, was information creep entirely a result of Adaptus' weapon, or did it also exist independently of that? I think it existed independently of that. It may have been called something else, but I think conceptually the idea that data corrodes and things are misremembered. I mean, I conceptualised that before I linked it to Adaptus' weapon. So when it was introduced as an idea in 20+1, it was to explain why these robots with sort of software, why it was possible for these near immortals with huge power of recall could have contested history. Colin asks, was 10 a composite Cybertronian, memories of past life or lives from his Spark components? I like that idea. I didn't think of that, but I think that would account for some things. Was Megatron feeling like a failure at the end of Lost Light after promising Optimus to find the Knights, or was he more humbled by not getting his way with the proposed plan? Is Megatron feeling like a failure? I don't think Megatron felt like a failure. I mean, by that point, the reality of the Knights of Cybertron has become apparent. They succeeded in their quest, insofar as they ended up with a new Cybertron, and that beyond finding the Knights, that was the goal. So I think he was at peace with that element, that side of things. SN asks me, is there anything that I wish I hadn't done in the stories? Oh, right, okay. I think I've talked about it already. The fake out death with Red Alert didn't do me any favours. Yeah, sometimes where, the pacing's been a bit rushed, or I've had to skip around a bit, like the Cyclonus injury in 47. Oh, which is my least favourite issue and why? Maybe, and this is purely from a writing perspective, nothing to do with the art, because the art is always amazing. I mean, I will answer this. But I'll also say some issues didn't benefit from their sequence, or from their closeness to other issues. The Swerve issue being followed by the Charisma Parasites issues being followed by the Swerve issue didn't do me any favours really, because it was three quite high concept issues in a row. Yeah, the Trojan Major two-parter. I didn't pull that off as I wanted to really. So I would. I'm obsessively careful about not submitting an issue until I think it's the best I can make it, and I'm proud of pretty much every issue. And there's bits in every issue that I think are good. There's lots I think aren't good. But there was something about that I couldn't quite make that work in the way I wanted it to. Genevieve asks, considering everyone forgot Rung by the end of their lap of honour, where does everyone think the additional matrices came from? Well, I thought somebody would ask that. And the simple answer is no one's quite sure. It's just people have had to invent explanations for it, because they can't even detect a Rung-shaped absence, let alone explain that. So it's just they've had to, whether they've invoked information creep probably accounts for the range of explanations, but conflicting theories. It's very disconcerting seeing live reactions to this here. Yes, I have said that Dying of the Light originally would have had the DJD coming after Drift. Do I own any Mastermind creations? I don't actually know. I'm very tempted. Talking of figures, I'm very tempted by the Megatron, the minor Megatron. I don't know who brought it out. Flame Toys? I don't know, but the Megatron, the More Than Meets the Eye Megatron as a minor. How did Drift get money to buy a ship? We've done that. On what grounds did the Galactic Council have the right to intervene in the Cybertronians' business and punish Megatron? There's sort of parallels with the UN, really, and with the sort of International Court of Criminal Justice. And many worlds have signed up to this, and in so doing, agree to surrender a degree of sovereignty to sort of a greater justice system. And the Cybertronians have been frozen out from that and have made themselves galactic pariahs over the years. And at the end of the run, we're seeing efforts being made by Prowl and Windblade and others to reintegrate. And so it's a combination of, if you want to be part of the Galactic Council, you need to surrender certain things surrender to our justice system. And secondly, Megatron is such a divisive character that to say we will trust your judgment over our own carried a lot of weight. 10th Dynasty says, at TFCon I mentioned that I'd intended to kill several more characters in the finale. Who else was on the death list? How are they going to die? Well, I've told you about Rodimus. Brainstorm. Oh, sorry. Brainstorm was another near miss. And at one stage Whirl as well, but that's going back a long way. Bum, 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 bum. Why aren't Brainstorm and Chrome Dome Amica Endurers? Well, not being. I mean, they might be. Like I say, just because they don't refer to it doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. And you can, I mean, to unpack that a bit, you might have people for whom Condrux Endurer carries a certain weight, but Amica Endurer doesn't. Or maybe Chrome Dome felt, burnt out, exhausted through failed relationships, romantic and friend-based. Okay, I think we're nearly there now. I haven't even been able to see the questions coming up on the screen here. What are my thoughts on pregnancy test? I think that's to do with Rung. Well, yeah, I mean, the Lunarians at the end of Lost Site 25 are clearly Rung's progeny on some level. Was the secret identity of Tarn always going to be Glitch, asks Unicron.com. Yes. People don't believe me, but yes, that was true. Bryn, who's going to an Elton John concert tonight, says, are the playlist songs out of my own playlist? What songs are on my writing playlist to get me motivated? Yeah, I mean, the songs that I've put out over the years are all songs that I listen to or have discovered. And I don't always listen to music when I write because it can be distracting. I did find, though, that of all the songs that I've offered up over the years, it was a song from a Doctor Who episode called Heaven Sent that I put out, I think, to accompany issue 24, which was the sort of final battle. And that one I played a lot when I was writing those last issues. Depression, brackets Alola form, says he was wondering why Riptide's auto brand was grey. from about halfway through the series, did it change when the mutiny went wrong because he thought everyone had been super murdered by the DJD? I like that phrase. Yes. There was a time when we'd have called that a no prize. Virtually a no prize. It's not really a continuity error, although maybe it is. But somebody would have said, "Well, this isn't a strange detail. How can we explain it? Is it this?" And I would have said, "Yes, that's fantastic. That's a good explanation." Someone else has asked me why certain auto brands are grey and others are not grey. And to be honest, we just sort of took our eye off the ball there and had to stick with it, had to keep some grey. So you can say it's perhaps reflective of different stages of grief. Were there any romantic feelings in Velocity and Nautica's relationship? Not really, but I mean, it's a spectrum, isn't it? I mean, feelings. There may have been times when there was something that sort of ebbed and flowed and flared and faded. I don't know, but I never had in mind that they would become. It was never a consideration of mine, really. In the version of the story where Megatron never joins the crew, would the green spark from Remain in Light have turned out to be Quick Switch? Yes. Good guess. That's, oh yeah, I need a holiday name, I guess. Cattle prod. Yeah, and someone else asked about stuff that was left on the cutting room floor. And there was, there had been, I'd planned to have the crew using information garnered through Chrome Dome's invasion of Overlord's brain. They were going to build their own Phase Sixer in the form of Quick Switch, giving him life through this, or through a spark they'd acquired, and they were going to coat him with Anuntrium, which is, there's a seed planted for that in one of the text stories I wrote, one of the prose stories. What is it now? I can't. That's terrible, isn't it? Is it 0 point? No, not 0 point. It would have been after. It would have been after Dying of the Light, after Remain in Light. So it would have been the prose story in issue 21, and there is reference to, I think, Swerve having a tray of metal, or a tray of liquid metal that he takes away. I think. Anyway, that's where it would have been. Someone says, I thought it was pronounced Unutrium? Unutrium, no. Well, Sound of Breaking Glass, thank you. Is that a spider on my wall? I hope not. That's a fancy light. Graham says, do I ever see myself writing Transformers fiction again, or is this the end? I might do like a little prose story from Omnibus. Or I might be... I might have a fantastic idea and try and persuade IDW to let me run with it. Or they might ask again. I don't know. There'll be a gap. How would Will be as a roommate? He'd be very messy and destructive. You'd probably have a crush on him and then hate him. Does Megatron move to go insane in prison and get released? But the questions are coming too fast on this feed. Would I vape our Lord and Saviour wrong? See, I don't even know what you guys are talking about half the time. Will I ever write Towards Peace? No, I won't write Towards Peace unless I'm being paid for it and I can take time off to think about how, to do it justice. If I voiced a character, who would it be? All of them. What would Quick Switch's personality? Quick Switch was going to be the pacifist character. So they would have gone to all this trouble to try and tip the balance and have this super warrior, and he would never ever want to fight. Favourite Chris Barry sitcom? Oh my god, it's definitely The British Empire. Is Cop pronounced Cop or Coop? It's obviously pronounced Coop. And then, can we have a More Than Meets the Eye TV series? Yeah, it started 2 months ago. Where are you? Tell us about spectralism. I didn't really think much about it. God, this is how we should have done it. Really quick fire questions. Do the cast remember the truth about the guiding hand? Yes, to a degree. Rung's role is confused. Does Megatron miss any of his old Decepticons? He does, yes. Coop, yes indeed. What is attractive in Cybertronian society? Metal. Favourite phase sixer? Six shot, definitely. What were the last wishes videos that we didn't see? I can't answer that and still have time. What was a Wheeljack's original role in your story? Brainstorm. What's a Cybertron wedding like? Very long. Were the Sharktacons planned to be found in space? No. Did Ratty and Drifty... I was surprised by people's reaction to Ratty. Did they get together in Lost Light 24 or on their way back to the Lost Light? I think they got back together got together on their way back to the Lost Light. Do I find prose or comics more interesting to write? It depends, really, on my mood. Swerve on Blur's death, yes, inconsolable. How was the Cygate wedding? Surprisingly, it was very loud, lots of singing. Do Turbo Fox furries exist on Cybertron? No comment. Was there anything between Swerve and Velocity ever planned? Absolutely not. What will my AO3 username be? I don't know if I'm going to go that far into it, really. Is there a roller rink on the Lost Light? Good. Joke. Does Minimus ever transform? Yeah, he transforms. What's Rodimus's favourite meme? He likes the butterfly meme. Who had more crushes on them, Roddy or Getaway? Getaway. How did Getaway feel when he found out he didn't outsmart Riptide? He was not happy. Does Megatron like Vor? I'm not going to be caught out on this. Are there any duplicates of robots on the last lights? Yeah, well, probably yes. And that was something else which definitely occurred to me, but was just too much to explore in Crucible without complicating things. Any thoughts on Drift's thighs? They are certainly impressive. Most obscure character you've put in the series would be Toaster. Did the Scavengers raise the Firstborn? In our universe, yes. Say something about Functionist Universe Impactor, please. He was a hero. What is Rung's favourite meme? That woman looking puzzled with algebra in front of her face. Did Skids love Nautica as a conjunct? Yeah, I'd say he was in love with her. Ravaged and Megs, don't change back. We're never going to answer that one. Am I excited for the new Bumblebee movie? Yeah, I'm very excited, and that's even before there was a Smiths reference in it. Roller and Nickel, yay or nay? I sometimes look at that panel where he's spinning her wheels and think that is the most outrageously erotic thing we've ever put in the comic. Was Nautica always going to forget Skids? Yeah, sadly. What alt universes are the crew visiting at the end of 25? That's for you to decide. A random fact about Black Shadow. Scared of oil. Stop asking me about memes. What else? I'm old. I only know about 5 memes. They are pretty dank. Will Swerve find love ever? I think he's destined to be a good friend to many. Wasn't Chrome Dam going to have the Firstborn early on? Yes, very early on I had an image of him holding a baby in his hand. Did Swerve get Misfire's number? Yes. Who do I regret killing? Tail Cutter. Tailbreaker. Trailbreaker even. Oh my god, who would win? No one's asked me a question starting with who would win. In who would win questions, it's always the first person that you list. Was Kaon's death always planned? No. Swerve friend zoned. Will Drift and Rod see each other again? Definitely, maybe. Swerve's #1 TV show is Community, obviously. Why did it seem heavily implied in 24 that World died opening the Matrix? That was never intended. I was surprised that people read it as that. He was just injured. But I mean, who's the clumsiest Transformer? Discharge. What's the most self-indulgent thing you wrote? The disco scene, which I probably shouldn't have done. Where did the Guiding Hand get their mortal names from? Yeah, some sort of folkloric information creep. People filling in the blanks and feeling the need to do that. Kaon and Dominus, were they involved, James, please? Not in the way that you want them to be, sorry. What time do I have to be up in the morning? You're right. I have to be up in the morning to write, actually, interestingly enough. Rung can't dance. No, we can't dance. Does Swerve prefer Queen is Dead or Strange Ways? Oh, man, Queen is Dead, even though Strange Ways is the cool choice. Was there always tension between Cyclonus and Getaway? Yes. Thank you for liking the disco scene. Thank you, everybody, for liking the disco scene. Does Will still make clocks? He does make clocks. You saw that in 25. What are you asking that you're not getting an answer to, Rosen? What would a lost light... Oh, sorry, it's going too fast. How much... Has the faith changed now the truth about the guiding hand is real? That's a really good question. Yes, it must do, I think. Am I still writing comics? Yes. If I was a Transformer, what would my alt mode be? It would be a pair of really nice headphones. Another fan of the disco scene, thank you. Will Megatron ever get to read Minimus's poetry? Yes. He took it to him in the last days in his cell. Did Swerve actually watch All Earth Entertainment? Yes, twice. Apart from Iron Fist. Does Brainstorm like Inspector Gadget? He's conflicted on that. Are there any songs I wanted to put in the disco scene but didn't? I'm sure there was now, but I can't remember what it was. What would Death Says alt mode be? A horn. There we go, look. Optimus and Megatron, how would that conversation have gone? Oh my god, it would have been the most intense conversation they'd ever had, respectively. Besides Rung's favourite original character created. I don't know if Rung is my favourite. I think Nautica. Is Deathsaurus a POP and or a Phase 6er? It's not a Phase 6er. Does Swerve like the Big Bang Theory? No, because he's got a functioning brain. Is there any other Cybertronian neurodiverse conditions? Yes, I would have liked to have explored some. Did any character... Oh, that's moving too fast. Does Farmer feel bad for what he did? Brackets killing his patients. Yes. Yes, originally, but then he sort of... he was overtaken by sort of mania. Does Swerve like South Park? Early series, yes. Did Minimus face discrimination because of his furry alt mode, i.e. Right? He did. Who would win, Cyclonus and Drift? Cyclonus. Would I ever do a writing workshop at a convention? Yes, if there was a demand for it. If I'm invited to conventions anymore. Do you think Amulon deserved better? Yes. Another furry question. Who's the furry in the Lost Light crew? Hoist. Will Rung be in future projects? Not my own. Is Tailgate the cutest? He's like a little marshmallow. Do all the Lunarians look like Rung or just some of them? They all have aspects of Rung. And actually that was something in issue 25. We wanted, through Jack's designs and Joanna's colours, to try and get that idea across without being too obvious about it. Why couldn't Rook have been Primus? Sorry, Bob Moore. Dusty invites me to TFCon, thank you very much. Yeah, Hoist and Zootopia, big fan of that film. What if Nautica ended up on the cutting room floor? I'm not sure what you mean. Which TF is a Hanzo man? Oh god, the lamest. Can I think of a crack ship? I don't know what crack ship means. Oh, I think I do. That's like a bad relationship, isn't it? Is it hard to break into the comic writing scene? Yes, it is, and I was very lucky to have to have contacts that gave me a chance. Is Rung watching from above? Yes. Who's considered the hottest in Lost Light? Well, Getaway was actually, followed by Skids. They were a very hot duo. Are there duplicates? There won't be duplicates on... If there's duplicates from the Functionist universe that have come into our universe, they won't be cancelled out. The cancellation only happens when it's a quantum duplicate. Were there any cut scavengers? Not in terms of crew members, of members of the team that I dropped. What does Perceptor do in his spare time? He doesn't have any spare time. Swerve's favourite meme. Oh god, he's so over memes. Does Rung listen to Skinny Bones by the Ditty Bops? He's aware of the Ditty Bops. No, Crack Ship is a ship of two characters that make no sense ships, but are anyway for fun, like Rodimus and Magnus. What did Rung see on Madiri? Oh, yes, that's a good question. Actually, I'm trying to think whether I ever contemplated that. What happened to Functionist Universe Anode? She was an incredible war general. Did Nickel have a girlfriend on Prion? Yes, I think she probably did. Did Rapid Fire survive? Can you tell me about his personality? He is, as the name suggests, he talks 10 to the dozen. He can't sit still. He's got attention deficit disorder. What's my favourite Transformer as a kid was Hot Rod as a toy, followed by Sandstorm as a toy. Very good. Grimlock and Misfire, Amica possible. Amica definitely. What's her favourite Quantum Leap? He likes the last episode a lot. Otherwise, it's the Leap Home parts 1 and 2. Is it weird being on a monthly deadline? Yes, it is very weird not being on a monthly deadline. Actually, my life is lacking shape a little bit at the moment in terms of that. It's nice to have time to read and watch things, though. Did Grimlock reunite with Swoop in our universe? Yes. Will we get a comic about the DJD in the future? I was going to say very unlikely, but who knows now? Who is the best 7 minutes player? I don't understand that question. Current favourite song? Oh my God, it's the song by Grace Petrie called Farewell to Welfare, and it's incredible. Who was Nickel's favourite DJD member? Tarn. What was Fort Max going to do in More Than Meets the Eye 15 that was so immoral? I've forgotten. Did Crankcase get together with Cons Forever in our universe? Yes. Decepticons beef with organics, where did it start? God, I should know the answer to that. That's a fundamental question. I think it was weren't the Cybertronians attacked by organics first of all? I'll come back to you on that one. What did I think of this season of Doctor Who? I really, really wish it well. I'm a little bit underwhelmed. There's been some great episodes or great moments, but something's just not quite right. Would I like to have done more with Star Saber? Yes, I would like him to have longer fights with people. How long were Ratchet and Drift together? Decades and decades, but you've got to be vague because the time differences in 25 is vague. What would you tell your child fanboy self? Try to unlearn things. Don't feel you need to scratch like a fanboy itch. Try and relax and do different things. Swerve and Misfire thoughts. I think they are the Booster Gold and Blue Beetle of the Transformers universe. Which Lost Lighters actually like the movie Monsters vs. Aliens? None of them. What styling product do I use and why are you... do I keep being asked that question? I use fish. It's a product. I don't use actual fish. Does Rung know that we love him? No, he doesn't. He's very lonely. What's the one thing I would tell a new comic writer? I would tell a new comic writer, never ever settle for will this do. If you think something can be better, then it can be better. Keep at it. Was Crucible originally going to be longer? Kind of. It would have been sort of spread over multiple stories in a way. Can we have a Spotlight Hoist too? Oh, that's the other person that likes a Spotlight Hoist. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Let you hug Rung. What bots like Shrek? No single character likes all of the Shrek movies. They all like the first one. Did Grimlock and Fort Max reconcile? Yes. Rodimus's favourite Disney movie is Robin Hood. What's the Lost Light favourite Disney movie? Oh, no. Will I Sleep? Yeah, it's not too late for me. It's around about midnight. Log and Anode wedding song. I can't take my eyes off of you. Which TF gives them worst hugs? Octopunch. Oh look, no more questions. That means you're all... Does Swerve sort of remember wrong because of fourth wall breaking? Swerve remembers the cover to a comic that had Rung on it and can't explain what that means. Would Rodimus eat Doritos? Oh yeah. Who gives the best hugs? Funnily enough, Megatron. Did any characters like Ammo have backstories? That feels like I'm being told off. When did I start writing anything? Like about 6 o'clock, no, 6 years old. Top 3 easy on the eye Lost Lighters. That's for you to tell me. Cygate wedding song. Surely you don't have to ask that one. How did Chrome Dome and Brainstorm meet at the New Institute? I was going to say Magnus gave the best hugs, but then he's learned something of Megatron. Has Swerve read your erotic fan fiction? Yes, he was embarrassed but flattered. Could I have done an Inhumanoids cameo spin-off in the eye? Could I have done an Inhumanoids spin-off any justice? I don't think I could have done that. No reflection on Inhumanoids, but I don't think I could have brought the passion that you need to that project. How do I cope with all these questions? I'm surprised, actually. As long as they're short and pithy, I can do it. What would a simpatico wedding be like? Very complicated. It would be, they'd be trying to outdo each other in subtle ways. It would make a good sitcom episode, actually. Favourite podcast? Seb Patrick's Office podcast I like a lot. Why did Rodimus feel great with The Matrix? I think that was slightly psychosomatic. He's always fancied himself as being Matrix compatible, and maybe he is. Can Grimlock get a boyfriend? Unlikely. How would I feel about a GemTF crossover? Fantastic, bring it on. Which character would I have liked to have used but didn't get to? Prowl? Would I ever consider writing prose for a fanzine? It's not the fanzine part. It's just whether I need a little bit of a break from Transformers at the moment. Would Night be like Sherlock Holmes? Oh God, yes. What's with me and pregnancy baby plot lines? Sandra, I've only done one. Who was Tusk? An early beast warrior elephant. Swerve's reaction to his fans. Oh my God, Swerve would be both the best and worst Twitter user of all time. Any romance among DJD members? Not that I'd thought about. What's my favourite gift from a fan? Oh, I can't choose, but anything which has been handmade I do like. Have I watched TFP or Animated? Yes, I've watched both of those, but not all the way through. They're both. I can see why they've both got huge fans. Skids as Doctor Who. What's the link? That was just sort of an in-joke that we ran with. Will I start reading all the fanfic now? Yes, but I won't. But please don't, in the nicest way, don't. But you can send me links, but I can't guarantee I will read it because I imagine I'll get quite a lot. Is Swerve secretly Drill? That's the best question I've had all evening. What's the worst movie Roddy likes? The worst movie that Rodimus likes is Caddyshack. Which Transformer would like Trump? None of them. How was Terminus's confession going to go? His confession to... How do you mean his confession? Come back to me on that one. Am I secretly Drill? I couldn't possibly say. Maybe this is like a battle of will. I'm just going to keep on going till one by one you drop out and nobody's left. Would Ratchet and Drift open a clinic together? I like the ambiguity of the word clinic there. Yes, they'd open a clinic. Is Toaster the real mastermind of the mutiny? Yes, he's got issues, Toaster has. How do I feel about World's many admirers? I can see why World would have admirers. Which Transformer do I want as my best friend? Skids or Wrong would be good as a best mate. Have the Lost Light ever heard the song Boogie Wonderland? No, that's the one song that hasn't reached them. Terminus telling Megatron he was a liar. Terminus was never going to confess to Megatron that. Yes. Gabe Bravado says, "I'm too strong. She is becoming weary." But don't feel you've got to see this out to the end. In fact, you know what? I think. Okay, there are a couple more questions. Does Whirl miss his Wrecker teammates? Yeah, absolutely he does. Yeah, they were his first family. Execution of Megatron, is this Prowl's idea? It was the Galactic Council's, but Prowl was very much in favour of it. Who would be the best romantic partner? It depends on your tastes. Who was Rung's romantic interest? He didn't really think of people romantically. He was very close to Skids. He was fundamentally quite a lonely character, and he liked feeling connected to people. Who plays Fortnite? Tailgate, Swerve, Rewind. Will I be doing another one of these? I don't know really. I don't know if there's a demand for it, to be honest. Would Lug and Ray, Graham, thank you. What question would I most like to finish on? Yeah, that's a hard question to answer. I think we will wrap it up. Yes, should we say? I'm just looking at what else have we got here. MBTI types for Runga Nautica. See, I'm learning things. I don't know what that. I don't know what that is. Any franchises or universes I'd like to write beyond Transformers? I'd like to do. I nearly did. I back when IDW had the X-Files license. That was X-Files. There should be a Quantum Leap comic, shouldn't there? Death Set. I'd like to do a Death Set comic. Okay, what's my favourite superhero? Spider-Man. Rung does deserve to be happy. Megatron does need hugs. You're all a very compassionate, tactile, thirsty bunch. Please publicly apologise to you, Jones, for sinking Ratchet and Farmer. Oh, goodness me. When I gave the answer to that, I failed to consider the the very passionate and devoted Ratchet Farmer fan base out there. I've just given you my interpretation, but I'm sure it's not canon, is it, anymore, because it's not on the page. Did Megatron and Ratchet and Minimus ever hug? There's been contact, there's been touching, in the sense of Christmas decorations, of course. Yeah, you are a passionate, thirsty bunch. I've never read the Warriors books, no. And that... There we go. Right. Okay. Listen. I think we. Oh, hello, Zach. Who made the first move, Ratchet or Drift? It's one of those complicated things where they both think the other one did. Right. Okay. I think we've had a good run. If we all want to do it, we can do it again. But I reckon we all need. I probably need to rest. Some of you need to rest. There's a lot of fervent, thirsty shipping going on, and that's very tiring for you guys. So I think some of you need to have a cold shower and chill. I'm really touched that there's been this amount of interest in the comic and in the questions. So yeah, thank you all very much. You're all lovely people. I've got half a pint of Corona to drink, and then I'm going to go to bed. So take care. See you soon. See you on Twitter. I'll try and answer some more questions on Twitter, but intermittently. But yeah, thank you. Good night. The transmission ends now.